Hey guys, Les is more back with another video, and today, uh, I am just going to briefly look through some Turner River sea betting spots, um, and then we're just going to look through like some of the delay lines, um, and this is a blind v blind single race pot. Um, Blind v blind is a very understudied spot. Um, I think mostly just because the hardware necessary to accurately solve these spots is a bit demanding. So we got some solves here. So we are going to utilize them and try and get some big takeaways. Um, we could look at some range construction stuff, but it's mostly just going to be a general overview of like some common lines. Um, and because I had a couple spots come up today during a session where I would open the small blind and then I would like see bet the flop and the turn would come like sort of a middling connected card and um I wasn't exactly sure what to do with my hand, so um I just wanted to go through some solves and I figured this would be a good time just to record a study session and put that out for you guys. So hop right in. So this is the database. These are six span queen high and jack high boards. Um, so yeah, boards like jack 6-5, jack 8-5, queen 10-7. It like pretty wet boards. Especially when they're queen and jack high. Like the bottom, the top and the bottom are just going to be a bit closer together. So there's going to be lots of cards that complete straights. Um, so yeah, let's take a look. The overall c betting frequency on the flop is around 50%. Um, I don't know if I've talked about exploitative adjustments in the spot before, but generally on rainbow boards, especially higher rainbow boards, blind v blind, people are just not going to float enough in position. Um, and you should be trying to exploit that. It's a similar concept to button versus big blind, although button versus big blind, most regs notice that they can't just you know check call like nine high with a shitty backdoor, so they just like raise or fold, and so it's like a little bit better of an adjustment um than they're probably making blind v blind where they would just fold, um which is a bit ironic. You would think they would find floats and in lieu of check raises, but um yeah, I think blind v blind, they just like no one floats wide enough. So we'll just walk through a few um, common lines on the flop. A board like Jack 8-5 doesn't seem to converge to any one specific size. We have a like quarter, half, 75 pot, 1.5 times pot. Pretty much everything is getting used at some frequency. I think on this board I just split between like a third and like a big bet like pot maybe. Um, Seems pretty good. I've done a video on overbetting the flop, and so if you've watched that, you sort of get some idea of how betting big on the flop works. Let's see. So facing a quarter pot bet on Jack 8-5 two tone. Let's see. The response, there's going to be a good bit of small raising. Um, I'm not sure I'm quite making the 19% frequency or whatever this 18% or whatever this is. I think I might need to go through and work a bit on that. Like I'm not sure I'm finding like uh the raises with like these backdoors like queen six of diamonds and such. Um, then yeah, raising a bit of ace eight, um, and like 8-6, 8-4. 8-4 no backdoor. That's a bit of an interesting one. Typically with these vulnerable pairs, you see raises on earlier streets when they don't have the backdoor, just because they don't want to see the next street as much. Okay, so we'll look at the turn report. So yeah, good bit of checking around half the time, betting around half the time. We'll look at the block frequency on each card. So the blocks on the so there's lots of blocking on the spades. I think that makes sense. Like generally, if you see bet the flop in or out of position, you're never going to be like bombing the turn on a flush completing card, or like really just any really wet card that completes a bunch of draws. Like it doesn't really make sense to overbet on a card that completes a bunch of draws for the out of position player. Um, because like in most spots, your goal is to with an overbet is to get value out of single pair or two pair hands that in position has that out of position doesn't. And so on those draw completing cards, like the equity shifts back to like much more of a balance, and so the see better on the flop doesn't have nearly as much of an advantage. Um, okay, so we can look at some of these spade turns. That might actually be good. The ace of spades, it's just a really high frequency block, which is a bit interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm finding all these blocks with like, Jack 6, Jack 7 on this ace of spades turn. This seems to be like a pretty good card for out of position. I mean, the ace is definitely good for out of position in general. So it makes sense. Like, there's lots of betting on like an ace brick. There's like it's actually like a very high frequency bet turn. Um, okay. We can take a look at the overall betting frequency. So the turns that are bet the least are the 4. That makes some sense. It like completes some offsuit 5-4 that in position has that out of position doesn't. Um, yeah, really lots of cards that a complete offsuit 2 pair. Like in position has 5-4 off, 9-8 off, 6-5 off, but also complete straights. So like the 4 completes 7-6 offsuit and 5-4 offsuit. So it makes sense you'd be doing lots of checking on this turn. Same with the 9 completes lots of like queen 10, lots of 7-6 offsuit, 9-8 offsuit. I would imagine that it makes a lot of sense why the 4 and the 9 are probably the best cards in the deck for in position. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then yeah, the spades are slightly less good for in position. The thing about flush turns is that they sort of balance out the equity, as I was saying earlier. So like this spade card isn't going to be as good as the offsuit 4. Just because like you have to think about like the turn cards that outdraw the one pair hands that in position doesn't have. Like out of position will have the over pairs and in position won't on this board. So like a 4 will give exclusive, well not exclusive, but lots of 2 pair combos to in position. that out of position doesn't have, like the 5-4 offsuit specifically, and it outdraws those overpairs that out of position has that in position doesn't. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. Yeah, lots of high frequency betting on the offsuit ace, and just and in addition to the ace of spades in general. So yeah, these high spades. I mean, the high cards in general, you're going to be betting, a decent amount. Like on the offsuit king, you're going to be doing a lot of betting. Lots of big betting as well. Although this is a double flush draw. On like the offsuit king. So maybe I've pointed this out before, but in general, on double flush draw turns, you're not going to be doing tons of massive betting, because you have to think about it like this. Like, if you have aces or ace king on this turn, you have to consider like how many rivers are you actually going to be able to value bet? Because if you pot the turn, or say you overbet this turn with ace king, and then the river comes. I mean, there's countless rivers that sort of butt fuck your hand, like a 4, a 9, a diamond, a spade, where after you overbet the turn, their range is really condensed to draws and pair plus flush draws and that sort of thing. Um, you're really not going to be able to put in any sort of sizable value bet on the river. So instead of overbetting this king with ace king on the double flush draw turn, you'd rather just like pot it, and then even if the river comes some low flush, like maybe backdoor flush completing card, you could still value bet for some smaller size. But yeah, if you overbet this double flush draw card, there's just going to be tons of rivers where at equilibrium you just have to check fold, because you bet so big that their range is just condensed to a bunch of draws, and so when any draw completes, your hand's just fucked. So keep those principles in mind. Also, another thing would be, if you bet small on the flop, imposition's going to have to raise a decent amount of top here. So like queen jack, king jack, ace jack is raising a good bit. So like on these high card turns, you shouldn't just like auto check a jack. Like if you have ace jack or queen jack, don't just autopilot check because you don't think you're gonna get value or whatever else. Like especially on this board where there's no king x gut shots. Like king queen is not a gut shot on this board, although it probably floats like almost always against a bet. Yeah. Um, their range is so wide. Like something like pocket queens or ace jack is still quite strong. You can see like ace jack almost with 80% equity. So on these turns where you have to that are like good for your range, make sure you're not just like autopilot checking something like ace jack. Uh, it's okay to keep betting with this sort of hand. Let's see. Okay, let's look through a few river spots. So yeah, on a run out where we're going to be value betting jack x on the turn, and then we get this brick river. Yeah, we're still going to be blocking like a bunch of jack x. Looks like we're even like half potting something like queen jack. Um, Although against a small bet, they should be raising like all the king jack and then like the king queen off a good bit, and all the king x2 pair and king x plus flush draw. So that does remove some of the king x from the range, but they shouldn't just be floating like the naked like king 4 of hearts on the flop. So not like they have a ton of queen x or king x, I should say. Yeah, it is important to keep in mind like the relative strength of your hand. if you like, because you can pot a hand like um ace jack on the turn. But the river line is going to be pretty different if you pot the turn. Um, let's see. So if you pot call, let's see what's the jack X doing. So now a jack is like a jack worse than ace jack is just blocking, and then ace jack specifically is half potting. Um, and then a king is like half pot or bigger. Ace king going like pot. Okay. And then on these flush completing rivers, it's going to be lots of blocking, right? Um, yeah, so like ace jack would block, and then like your king x is just going to block. And then if you overbet the turn, and then the flush completes, your strategy is going to be much more like very small or very big. So like in this line, after the flush completes, after you like bet really big on the turn, um, my strategy is just like block or, uh, I guess at this SPR I just like third pot or jam. Um, the logic being like it's kind of hard to have a hand that's not a flush that you can bet much bigger than half pot. Um, like if you have a hand like ace king, you definitely don't want to jam. Although your hand's relatively strong. Um, if they don't have a flush, it's your hand's like very strong. But yeah, it's just when these draws complete, you're gonna want to split your value accordingly, and when you overbet the turn, their range is much more condensed to draws and then top pair. So just be mindful of that. Let's see. We can look at maybe some straight completing cards. That way it's a solve the row. It's solved it. Okay. Uh, so the rivers we do the most checking are a king and a jack. That makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you overbet the turn, their range is condensed to uh, A draws, B jack X, and C king X. So on a king jack or spade, it makes a lot of sense to do a good bit of checking. Although, okay, so I should cover this. Um, when so the difference between barreling turns out of position and in position is, especially when overbetting, is that you can't put zero equity draws into the general heuristic is you can't put zero equity draws into the overbet size when you're out of position. Um, so blind v blind when you overbet the turn, you generally should your bluffs generally should be you know draws and value, really, right? Um, because the thing is, like, when you barrel in position, there's going to be lots of, say it's like button versus big blind single raise pot, and you like bet the flop and then you overbet the turn. Um, the thing is that if you barrel the turn in position for like a really big size, and they call with like top pair, and you just have like some naked overcard. Like if the board is like queen nine deuce six, you can like overbet the turn with like king four, just like a naked overcard, and then when you like hit the king on the river, you can just like check back and win against king jack, or queen jack. Um, so uh, when you're out of position, even if you hit some sort of like weak overcard on the river, you're still gonna have to like check and then possibly face a bet. So yeah, generally when you're out of position, you can't just barrel like naked hands like that. So you're generally going to be weighted towards draws. So like blind v blind after you overbet the turn, the spades, like the draw completing cards, aren't going to be as bad for you as as you know button versus big blind. Um, you can see like even on these low spade cards where you would think out of position would be doing a bunch of checking, small blind will actually be doing a good bit of betting. And it's sort of this thing we discussed earlier of like splitting between like this block size and like a really big, not really big, but bigger size. Um, like ace king, like blocking, and then you're just gonna go bigger with like, yeah. The thing about this river is like it completes streets and, well, it completes 9-7 and flush draws and 6-5 off. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to have jams with something that isn't a flush. Yeah, yeah, I suppose that makes sense. There's the occasional jam with flush, but mostly just going to be like blocking or betting medium to big-ish with a flush. That's pretty interesting. And then in the block half line, you can still like bet a jack on the river for a block size after you half pot the turn. So this line is block call king, half pot call, and then 6 flush completing. You can still like block a jack for value. I think um this might be a spot where I'm not finding these bets with this Jack X, and not that it's like a huge mistake or anything. Like the EVs would be pretty close. Like the EV of checking is, yeah, almost identical. Like if there's a hand that's pure blocking the river, generally the expectation between blocking and checking is going to be pretty close. There's some exceptions, but generally that's going to be the case. Um, okay, that's interesting. Maybe give it like a deuce of hearts on the river. Yeah, like yeah, king four, king three are potting the river. Yeah, so make sure you're finding these big bets on the river after you like bet small flop, bet small turn, and you have like a top pair on the river, and it's like a super brick run out. Make sure you're finding like some bigger bets with the top pair. Um, I think I would find these. It's really these flush completing rivers or draw completing rivers where I might be um, not finding sufficient big bets with thin value hands. So on a 4, yeah, like I'm not sure. I'm probably finding a pot with king queen. Um, I mean, there's just not lots of big betting in this river. Like a pairing river. Yeah. And then an ace river. So the general heuristic after so I suppose this is a bit different because it's blind v blind. But like say you say it's like button versus big blind single raise pot and you like float the flop out of position and turn goes check check and then the river's an ace. Generally the heuristic is you just want to be doing a bunch of small betting. And I think people have this spot backwards because after the flop goes check check in that spot and the turn's an ace, the big blind range is the big blind strategy is like very, very polar because um the position player is going to be checking back lots of like ace king ace queen on the flop that like didn't hit the flop. Uh so the only incentive so the only hands that have incentive to bet for the out of position player are hands that can beat an ace. Um and so after turn goes check check, the out of position player still going to be at like a relative nut disadvantage in that configuration. Whereas here, the out of position player has like all the ace king ace queen that in position doesn't. So like on this, we can look at like a slightly different run out, maybe like a brickier run out. Deuce check check river ace. Yeah, okay. So like the out of position player is uncapped in terms of ace x. So yeah, the out of position player can be doing lots of bigger betting here. Whereas button versus big blind in this line, say it went like check bet small call check check and then the river's an ace. The out of position player should just be doing lots of small betting. Whereas here the out of position player is uncapped in terms of ace x, so they can afford to do some big betting. That's actually pretty interesting. We can look at a slightly different texture. Queen 7-6. Okay, so the overall strategy: Queen 7-6. In position has to find some floats like all 10-5 of diamonds raising. 10-4 of diamonds is like indifferent. Jack 4, Jack 5, King 4, King 5, and then yeah, these gut shots raising. Okay. Yeah, these low sort of wetter cards out of position is going to check a lot, and then it seems like out of position is just going for like this half pot bet. Kind of makes sense. Like there's no hand that out of position just loves to like pile money in with on like a 4, right? Um, yeah, so on a 4, out of position is just doing. See, it's like potting with Queen X. Okay, this is sort of interesting. This is what I wanted to get to, which is even though the 4 looks kind of like mildly dangerous, um, out of position can still pot hands like king queen ace queen queen jack, sort of these top pairs with the nut undercard, like so here the queen jack would be the top pair with the nut undercard to the board. Really like to bet big because it beats all the queen, like the offsuit queen x that hasn't made 2 pair, but also not having the overcard to the board incentivizes this hand to go a bit bigger and just get a fold on an earlier street. Because any king or ace is just not great to see for this hand. And so this hand would rather just like bomb the turn, and then if the river's like an ace, it's still a relatively strong hand because like most of the ace x just folds the turn. that floated the flop. So um but yeah, you can see there's not many like naked hands that are just like bombing the turn. You know, sort of what I was talking about earlier, where out of position can't just like bomb, you know, just naked air. Uh, it's checking all this ace X offsuit without a straight draw, like ace 8 with the gut shots, ace 5 with the open ender, potting the turn. Uh, okay, back to the board. The cards that are getting overbet are, yeah, pretty much just the brick deuce, the offsuit jack. Remember the double flush draw cards really aren't getting overbet. The offsuit king, and then ace X, like the offsuit ace. Yeah, so like on this ace, you're really just splitting between like half pot and like a really big bet. Makes sense because imposition doesn't have ace queen. So yeah, let's take a look at this overbet line. If you overbet, hold down this river. All right. This would load. Okay. The rivers we're doing jams on are the king. That makes sense because like the king technically is like a draw completing card, but the only hand that gets there is like jack 10 of spades. Um and you still have like the nut advantage in two pair. So on a king with ace king, you pretty much have the nuts aside from um you know, sets and jack 10 of spades, I suppose. Oh, that's the and then you have clubs. So yeah, you can jam ace king ace queen, because you pretty much have the nuts. Yeah, 99.7% equity. Yeah, you literally just lose to jack 10 of spades. Because the sets should have just raised in an earlier street. So it's funny how this works blind v blind, because I think uh people, or I think most regs are a bit more apt to just slow play these sets in position as opposed to out of position button versus big blind. But if you think about it, it actually makes a bit more sense to fast play these sets in position blind v blind, because out of position should be barreling draws, right? Like they can't just barrel naked air. So like when you have these draws, it actually makes a good bit of sense just to like do some small raising. Like against this overbet, you can just like click it, and you know, all of these draws are gonna have to not all of them, but like the combo draws, like the stronger of the draws are gonna have to continue. And yeah, stuff like ace queen is gonna like put the money in for you. It's kind of funny how that works. But yeah, I think it is counterintuitive to how people actually think about the spot. Like out of position, I think they're gonna fast play these sets more often, um, because they're out of position, and they don't want like some wet card to come on the river and then in position check back. Whereas like it should be the other way around, where out of position is, barreling more draws than as opposed to just air. And so imposition should be fast playing these sets a bit more often. I wonder against like the smaller size, does that still happen? Yeah, yeah, actually, sure. It looks like it's quite a massive mistake in terms of expectation to just slow play those sets. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Uh, okay. Yeah, I think I covered enough broad concepts in the video today. Next time I will maybe I'll come out with a plan explain and try to demonstrate some things we've been studying together. Um, but until then, thank you guys for watching.